In conversations about China-Africa ties, we often hear about trade, investment, and major projects, but sometimes the story is better understood through individual experiences. This is China-Africa Talk. I'm Gao Junya. From April the 11th to 18th, Namibia's Minister of International Relations and Trade, Selma Ashipala Musaviyi, paid an official visit to China. During the trip, her delegation held a business roundtable in Beijing aimed at promoting trade and investment cooperation between the two countries. It was at this event that I met Alina Mbango, a Namibian PhD student who has spent 4 years studying in China. I sat down with her to get a more personal perspective on how young people are experiencing and contributing to the relationship between China and Namibia. So, Alina, first of all, could you please just give me a brief introduction of yourself?
Okay, my name is Alina, just like you mentioned right now. I'm Alina Mbango. I am from Namibia and I am currently in Beijing pursuing my PhD in minerals economics. Thanks to the bilateral agreements between the two countries, China and Namibia, of course, I got to experience the high quality education and training from the Chinese education system.
And which university are you pursuing your PhD?
From China University of Geoscience, Beijing. This university has a long-coming relationship with Namibia for so many years, and of course, our former presidents have been visiting this university on so many occasions. Yeah, it's in Haidian.
And how many years have you been here in China pursuing your study?
In China, I would say it's almost, I'm going to 4 years now in China. So next year will be, sadly, hope, maybe not, it's likely to be my last year in China.
And what about your future plan after graduation? Are you going to stay here, or maybe you're going to work as a bridge between the two countries?
Well, honestly speaking, I would love to serve as the bridge between the two countries. I would love to help my government. I would love to employ the knowledge that I've learned from the Chinese education system into the Namibian economy, to help the government, to meet the government halfway, because they cannot do this alone. They need us, the ordinary citizens, to play a role in developing the economy as well. So, of course, I would love to be between the two countries. However, if that's not possible, I would choose the side that brings much greener pastures.
You also represent the Namibian students here in China, right? In China or in Beijing?
In China overall.
In China overall,
Yes.
Can you give me a rough figure? Like how many of them are here in China now?
The Namibians in China, just like our population is quite small, right? About 3 million people. So the same applies here in China. It's quite a small number of Namibian students here in China. We are looking at statistics of approximately 120 Namibian students spread across China. So in Beijing alone, we are looking probably at a number of not more than 50. It's quite small.
And what motivated you to come here to pursue your PhD study in the first place?
Well, that's a good question, actually. What motivated me to come to China is how the advancement of the economy, right? I've always been a curious person. When I see people doing things right, I always question, what exactly are they doing different from what we are doing? I was curious to tap into the Chinese economy to understand what exactly are they doing and what can I take from that economy and bring it back into my economy to develop it, to help develop it to a level that China is currently. So that was the main motivation. I actually just wanted to understand their system, their way of thinking, and how they do things.
So definitely, before you came here, you already actually got a picture of China, what China is like, right?
Yes.
So is that because you've in touch with the Chinese community in Namibia, or through the information online? What was it? What China was like in your mind, and before you came here?
That's quite funny actually. When I came to China, I came like, the child that was just sent in the jungle, like go figure your way out. I literally came alone. I hopped onto the plane. I've never been to China. Hopped onto the plane. I remember that time it was like COVID time. So when I came to China, I wasn't really in contact with the Chinese community, yeah. But the idea of what China looked like is what we see on TV. I was quite impressed with how fast their economy is growing, their education system. We used to watch movies of how these children are just so smart when it comes to math. So I was like, I need to experience this firsthand. And yeah, that is the China I imagined back home.
So it's totally worth it, huh?
Yes, it is. I'm actually very much thankful that I came here and I got the exposure and the experience, because it really opened my eyes.
Yeah, can you just share with us some of the examples, like something you find, okay, this is different, this is so amazing, or it's a cultural shock, things like that?
Okay, one of the most amazing things that I've learned is that a Chinese business person never tends away, let me say, is it money? For instance, if you say that this phone is 2,000 yuans, right? And I say I don't have the money, immediately they'll say, okay, fine, 1,900, discount. They're like, they will not let you walk away. So I got to learn that. And everywhere I started going, I don't buy on the original price, because I feel like it's a culture here. And I've heard plenty of people say, you don't buy on the original price, negotiate so you get a discount. And another thing that I learned, or something that I got to experience, it's the friendliness in the people. For instance, as a foreigner, I remember there was a time, one of the very beginning, I got lost. I hopped on the bus for the first time, and it took me to the outskirts, very far. I have never been there before. My phone went off, battery low. It was a nightmare. Luckily, there was a grandmother who was so concerned about me, because it was almost nighttime. So she was so concerned. She decided to help me. We didn't understand each other. I couldn't even understand basic Chinese. So it was just a matter of sign language, right? So she was just, using sign language, the heads, no, you go like this. So she was directing me to a nearby shop so that I can go probably charge my phone. I got in the shop, and I used sign language again with the shop assistant, and she understood me. She was very much helpful. She helped me charge my phone. And yeah, so one of the experience when it comes to culture is that they are very friendly when it comes to helping foreigners, especially like me, or maybe I was just lucky.
Through our conversations so far, I think young people play such an important role when it comes to country-to-country relations, right? When it comes to Namibia and China, we know we have a very solid relationship, actually. The second day after the independence of Namibia, we established bilateral diplomatic ties back in 1990. And your founding father, Sam Nujoma, he's a very good friend of China. And I'm curious to know, like, in young people like you, Namibian young people, did you identify any differences when it comes to the relationship during the old generation and now the young generation?
Well, I must say there's a significant difference between these generations. And the difference, the main one, is the exposure, right? Back then, there were limited access to certain things like education. They didn't get the proper right education. And thanks to them, they paved the way for us. And we happen to be lucky. And they paved the way, such as, these bilateral agreements that is allowing us to go out into the world such as China, and come learn the best practices of other countries with the hope of coming back and employing it back into our countries. So yeah, like me, for instance, I have an open mind compared to a person from back in the days. So there's a huge difference.
Education-wise, what have you observed recently when it comes to China-Namibia education cooperation? And based on your own experiences, what more would you like to see to be done? Like, we are going to do better in this regard.
Okay, that's actually a great question, because one of my most areas that I target to improve in the Namibian community here in China as well as back home is quality education, right? I'm going to start with the last point where you asked how can you probably improve in the future. I want, I'm sure, back home they must be singing the same song as well. We want the education system tailored to the Namibian context. You see, it is not wrong what the Chinese education system is offering us, but the education system is tailored for the Chinese context, right? So it is likely to work perfectly in China, but it is likely not to work exactly as intended in Namibia, you see, because we have so many differences. Infrastructures here are so good, but in Namibia it's a different case. So if I'm learning things tailored for the Chinese context, it will be difficult for me to apply it in the Namibian context. So that is one of the improvements that I would love. I know it's going to be difficult because it's a whole lot of countries that you have to cater for, but that is my wish.
But I think people like you will definitely play a role because you've been studied in both systems.
Yes. In terms of the education, I really love what I've learned. Because it gave me a different view, I got a different exposure. The education systems are not the same. So, when you are always shown that this is white, this is black, you are more privileged because you know both sides, how both sides work. So even if you have to make a decision, you know how to strategically make the decision because you got the exposures from both angles. Yes.
And you're here for this Namibia-China business roundtable. During your stay here in China, do you see more Chinese people, they're getting interested in your country and in other African countries? Do you see such a trend?
Of course, as much as we want development, we are likely, of course, to see more Chinese communities entering the Namibian economies as well as other African countries. Yeah. So just like our minister mentioned, Namibia is open for investment in so many sectors. She mentioned 7 key areas, So these 7 key areas entails, or it is indicative that we are likely to see more Chinese business communities entering into the Namibian economy to improve it at the same time.
When it comes to those key areas, I know agriculture, right, is one of it, and energy, like fishing is also a big industry in Namibia. I don't know, based on your own experiences, like on your relatives, family, or friends, maybe someone are engaged in a certain sector and they are benefiting from Chinese investment. I'm wondering if you have such a case to share.
If I have somebody specifically related to me, well, no, I wouldn't say, but of course I have seen it happen. The China business community in Namibia has been corporate responsible, has been giving back to the community in so many ways. Like recently I saw the Chinese oil company has been giving back to the communities, like they came up with, is it a farming agriculture kind of like project where they donated goats, I think. I hope I'm not getting this wrong. And yeah, so I don't have really somebody close to me that is benefiting from this, but I have seen it from far, people benefiting. And like we saw on the presentation, I forgot the name, they've been giving back to the communities by training their staff, which is continuous professional development. So which means that should these people leave this employment, they have higher or advanced knowledge in a certain area, and there will be, great candidates.
Yes, local empowerment definitely it plays a significant role. And you mentioned goat. We know that actually, I don't know if you heard this, and we're going to have mutton, Namibian mutton here in China, right?
It's quite exciting to hear such news that I remember before Namibia has been trading beef to China, and now they increased it to mutton, and it is quite something great. Even myself, I'd love to get into agriculture so that hopefully I can be trading between Namibia and China, supplying them with mutton.
Yeah, speaking of this, because starting May the 1st, China is going to have zero tariff treatment to 53 African countries with diplomatic ties, of course, Namibia included. Based on your experience and your observation, what opportunities would this policy bring to your exports and to the value addition?
I would say that this is a great opportunity for these 53 countries, African countries, because they got a market where they can sell their products into at a 0%. So I feel like at this point, this is more of like China indirectly saying thank you to these African countries. And I'm hoping that it can last for so many years.
Speaking of Namibia, I think we can't skip one sector, that is tourism, because many people say Namibia is definitely among the top 10 must-visit African countries, because you have such different, beautiful natural landscape, and not to mention those rich wildlife, right? So, what opportunities would you like to see when it comes to China-Namibia cooperation? And what is the status quo as you observed?
Okay, so when it comes to China and Namibia, tourism, China is a country with a huge population and compared to Namibia, right? So the Chinese community visiting Namibia will mean boosting the Namibia tourism revenue significantly, and that will be one of the greatest blessing Namibia can have. And I just want to mention this. I remember there's a friend of mine, probably she will even listen to this. There was a time she wanted to visit Africa, and she didn't know which country to go to specifically. She asked me about Namibia. I told her, trust me, if you come to Namibia, you'll not regret it, We have so many people that want, even, after visiting Namibia, they want to go back just to go live there because of the beauty of Namibia and the peaceful life, And she was like, but I'm worried. I was like, why are you worried? She's like, no, I heard there is a disease. I'm like, oh, really? What disease? And then I was now concerned. I was freaking out, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
and then she says, malaria. I'm like, really? I'm like, look at me, have I died? I've lived in Namibia for so many years, and not even one day have I gotten malaria, Malaria is mostly found in places where there's, okay, if I'm not mistaken, right, let me not lie, with a lot of water, right? And you find that in just certain parts of Namibia, not everywhere,
Right.
So, and also, I don't think that's a reason for you not to visit Namibia and all that. And it's just like, okay, but has any of your relatives or, friends ever gotten malaria? I'm like, trust me, nobody in my family ever got malaria. So it's just probably a mindset, But I was like, come to Namibia, come with me whenever you're ready. I'm gonna show you what it feels like to be in Namibia. I told her that should not be, okay, it is okay to be worried, but I don't think you shouldn't worry much about it because most of the places you're likely to go to don't have a lot of water, like Namibia is dry, only a certain part. So, yeah. But the coastal line, we don't even experience malaria case. Most of the times we don't experience.
Did she manage to go there?
No, not yet. It was a recent conversation, so...
You need to bring her there.
Yeah, she needs to experience what it feels like to be in Namibia, climb the dunes, the Sources Fly.
at the round table, Minister Musavi had a very sharp comment, I would say. She said, yes, we have a diplomat like me, but all of you, like you who are based in China, you are the ambassador of your country. So now I'm going to ask you the question. You are now representing Namibia. How are you going to introduce your country to people who might not hear of it? Yeah. And who are interested to find out it.
Okay, just to repeat what the minister said also, she says that, as a Namibian ambassador, like as everybody is a Namibian ambassador, we have to represent ourselves in certain manners that truly represent a Namibian, right? And of course, that is what I have been doing specifically. For the past years, I've been in China. And if I were to introduce Namibia to the rest of the world, and China specifically here, the first thing that comes of my mind is the high dunes and the ocean, Swakopmund. You've been there, right?
I was so lucky. Yes,
okay,
yes.
So that's it. And the investment opportunities, of course, this forum was more on investment. Namibia is a virgin land, right? It's more of like an untapped, right? So there's a whole lot of opportunities that one can find in Namibia, and the people, the culture, good people, friendly people. If you go in Namibia, I'm sure you feel like you're at home. You'll not even be worried. Very helpful people, just like here in China, walking on the street. You can ask anybody, they'll be very much happy to help you. And I feel like, yeah, so I think that's the little things I can say about Namibia so far.
Yeah, I think definitely we can't skip the people. I also found it while I was there. They're very accommodating and kind, and they're willing to help.
Yeah.
And as someone with the background of studying here in China as well, actually in our eyes, you're also the ambassador of us. Yes, you're the ambassador of China-Namibia relations. So what messages are you going to convey to your people back home, what China is like?
Okay, that's quite a good question, because I was just thinking of it like the past few days. I was like, when I go back to Namibia, of course I'm going to miss China because of how they've made life so easy in almost all aspects, And when I say easy, it's in terms of transportation, digital-wise. Me specifically now, coming from Namibia where we speak English, I would of course tell them that don't worry, you will survive the China environment. It's very friendly to foreigners. I have survived it. Although Chinese hasn't been, my Chinese is not so good, I still managed to survive. There are people who speak English, of course, because people are of an opinion that people in China don't speak English. That's a lie. They do know how to speak. I remember the beginning, these friends of mine, they didn't want to speak English, and I heard only later on they told me that, oh, we are always shy, And I'm like, why? So that's when I learned. I was like, so almost everybody, like especially in my school, knows how to speak English. They just don't want to. And at the same time, I feel like it's good so that they are forcing me to speak Chinese and improve my Chinese as well. So yeah, of course, I would advise them to come to China, experience it themselves as well, see what we are missing out on. Yes.
Seeing is believing.
Exactly. Because if you hear this or see this on TV, there's a high chance that that is not the reality. Come for yourself and see what China really feels like, looks like.
I think we are like you've been here in China. I've been to Africa, and we know what the two sides are like, and actually this year marks the China-Africa year of people-to-people exchanges. So to enhance such people-to-people understanding, based on your observation, what more should we do? Like, for example, you are the one who's going to maybe organize an event or do something. What would be on top of your mind?
Okay, well, one of the means is probably having discussions, for instance, forums, understanding each other's different settings, backgrounds, improved exchange between, schools, employment.
Yes, like you said, they do count, right? every event, every forum, they count. Every discussion, they count. Even, a curiosity to know the other side, it counts, right? Also, because you've been here for such a long time, I'm wondering, you must be very well traveled here in China, right?
I've been to quite a few cities. I've been to Shanghai, Hangzhou, Anji Village, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. But the funny thing is, I've never been to Tianjin. I know.
Just half an hour.
I know. Everybody is always like, how come you're skipping Tianjin and going to all these cities? I'm like, I feel like maybe, when something is very close to you, you are just like, nah, I can visit it anytime, let it wait, And time is going. I think I really need to go before my time in China is out.
You will definitely love it.
Yeah, I hear that it's very beautiful.
It's very beautiful, and it has many historical sites and many beautiful buildings, and it has its own certain culture, its certain vibe. It's so different.
Definitely, I have to make time and visit Tianjin because it's just 30 minutes away.
Yeah, can you share some of your observations traveling around China, being to different places? What's your observation on China's development and its people?
I would say they have almost the same kind of infrastructure when it comes to the traditional houses and the high buildings and all that, almost in every city. And one of my favorite that I wish to live in is the Anji village. Yeah, the bamboo. We visited the bamboo forest. Is it Silin? Yeah, forest. Yeah, and also we got to see the clothing made in bamboo. Yeah, and when it comes to the housing, I liked. There's a part where they have housing that looks like almost in Namibia.
Like thatched huts.
Yes. So I fell in love with Anji, and if I were to get a chance, I would love to live in Anji because it's peaceful, not so much going on.
Anji is actually the birthplace of a certain theory here in China, quite popular. That is, lucid water and lush mountains are valuable assets. Because sometimes people will sacrifice the environment for economic gains. But in Anji, that's a totally different model. It was proposed by Chinese President Xi Jinping 20 years ago. Just that place. So so definitely when it comes to green development, environmental protection,
they're so much strong on it.
It's such a role model. That was Alina Mbango, a Namibian PhD student reflecting on her time in China. What I found interesting in our conversation was how she spoke about learning from China, but also about the limits of directly applying those experiences back home. That balance between learning and adapting seems to be a common theme among many students studying abroad. As China and Namibia continue to expand cooperation, these individual experiences may not always be visible, but they quietly shape how the relationship evolves. And that's it for this edition of China-Africa Talk. You can find us on major podcast platforms. We're also on Substack. Search and subscribe China-Africa Talk and get a better understanding of this evolving partnership between China and Africa. I'm Gao Junya. Bye for now.